Neuer was a weak, unfortunate midget who gets a life-ending migraine anytime he uses his skill. However, everything changed when he stumbled on a secret dungeon where he met an imprisoned elf baddie who taught him how to level up by making plot. So he started clapping every cheek in town to become overpowered. It all started one day when Neuer was informed that he couldn't get the job he wanted due to interference by a higher-ranking noble family. Knowing that his family was too broke to fight back, Neuer contemplated what to do next until his sister Alice came downstairs and suggested he take the entrance exam for the Hero Academy. When Neuer went into town, he met up with his childhood friend with bouncy melons named Emma to tell her about his hero dreams, and she revealed that she had some good news about his great sage skill, which told him everything about the world. Unfortunately, whenever Neuer tried to use this skill, his 1.5 brain cells would freeze up completely, causing him to have the most painful headache imaginable. Emma told him about some ancient texts she found which suggested that sharing a kiss with a loved one was the solution to the headaches. When Neuer tried to test out her theory, she stopped him and suggested they go to a better spot. They went to a high private spot in the city, and after sharing a passionate kiss, Neuer succeeded in activating his Great Sage ability. The Great Sage revealed that the most effective way for him to grow stronger in preparation for the Hero Academy exam was to explore a hidden dungeon which was in a cave close by. Several hours later, Neuer arrived at the dungeon and said a special incantation which allowed him to open the dungeon's sacred doors. There, he heard a mysterious female voice that led him to the second floor, where he saw a curvy blue-haired lady named Olivia who was completely chained up. The voice instructed him to touch her head, and when he did so, she introduced herself as an adventurer who got trapped in the dungeon 200 years ago during a solo raid. Neuer offered to free her from her chains, so she informed him that the chains were rigged with a curse that would unalive her if they were cut. When he told her about his goal to get stronger, Olivia offered to give him her skills and instructed him to tap his forehead on hers to initiate the transfer. Neuer followed her command, causing his body to overflow with aura and new skills. These skills include the Creative skill, which lets him create any skill he wants, the Bestow skill to transfer his created skills, and the Editor skill to edit them. She then informed him that he needed to gather life points to use those skills by doing pleasing things such as playing around with women, eating, or even earning money. However, he'd die if his life points reached 0. Neuer realized that he had over 500 life points, so he gave the Creative skill a try by materializing a stone bullet that took out a slime which attacked him. Afterwards, Neuer noticed that he was exhausted, so he replenished his life points by resting on Alice's lap that night. The next day, Neuer met up with Emma on a bench in the park and charged up his life points even more by having her hug him tightly in a way that had her soft melons pressing on his body. Afterwards, he tested out a new skill called the Discerning Eye that allowed him to peek into the information of any living creature or object, and the fact that it worked on Emma made him confident that he'd pass his exams. On the day of the exam, the instructor announced that the examinees will be split in groups of 3, with the task of gathering materials from monsters, and Neuer got rejected like trash by all the nobles in the area until Emma came and offered to team up with him. Just then, a girl named Lenore came by and offered to be the 3rd member of their team. However, when the exam started, she immediately left them in a rude manner, so Neuer decided to check out the dungeon himself while Emma waited outside. Unfortunately, he encountered a terrifying undead monster called a Dead Reaper on the 3rd floor and managed to avoid its instant death attacks by immobilizing it using a gravity spell. This allowed him to one-shot it using a giant stone bullet spell that consumed what was left of his life points. The next day, the instructor called out the results of the exam, and to everyone's surprise, Neuer's team was announced as the top-scoring team because of their historic achievement of taking down a Dead Reaper. Neuer, as well as his family, were pleased by the fact that he successfully passed the Hero Academy entrance exam, until he saw the enrollment fee, which was something more expensive than all their kidneys combined. Several days later, Neuer told his father about the enrollment fee of 300,000 which was due in a week, and seeing the old fart's pathetic reaction, Neuer decided to make the money for it himself. Some hours later, Neuer went to the dungeon and told Olivia about his predicament, so she suggested he fight some rare monsters in the dungeon and sell them off. Neuer didn't like that idea because he didn't want to bring attention to himself, especially after the entrance exam where he had to give Lenore the credit for the Dead Reaper thing in order to avoid looking suspicious. In light of this, Olivia came up with an even better idea, which was for Neuer to work at an adventurers guild named Odin. When he got there, he met a charming receptionist named Lola, who explained the system to him. According to Lola, adventurers handle various tasks from harvesting plants to taking down dangerous monsters in dungeons, and the ranking system works just like every other low-budget power fantasy where you can go from E rank to S rank based on how much you level up over time. As part of the registration process, she handed Neuer a book to write down his skills, and when he did so, her mood instantly went dark because she recognized his skill set as those of Olivia, who was once a member of that very guild. She asked him to prove his claims by placing his hand on a special book called the Discerning Tome, which had the ability to make his skills appear in writing, and promised to apologize in a sus way if his words were confirmed to be true. When he touched the book, all of his skills appeared, and seeing that it was exactly what he claimed it to be, Lola shivered in shame as she fulfilled her promise. Some minutes later, she officially registered him as part of the guild, and when he told her about the cash he needed, she recommended a quest which involved catching a rare bug called rainbow grasshoppers that were incredibly hard to find. When Neuer arrived at the habitat of the rainbow grasshoppers, he created a headache immunity skill which nullified the side effect of his Great Sage skill, allowing him to find out the location of the bugs. He went to the spot described by the Great Sage and started gathering the rainbow grasshoppers until Emma suddenly showed up and started chewing him out because he didn't tell her he'd become an adventurer. She reminded him of a promise they made during their past year to always stick together, and helped him out with the quest by letting him munch on her lips again to reduce the headaches. After the mission, Neuer handed the rainbow grasshoppers to Lola, and she gave him a bag of gold coins as a reward before suggesting another quest, which was for him to slay some monsters. When Emma saw how chummy Lola was getting with Neuer, she decided to mark her territory by dragging him away from her in such a manner that his arms were pressing on her melons. The two ladies started bickering and causing a commotion at the guild hall, so Neuer settled their beef by rizzing up Lola and giving Emma permission to accompany him on his mission. When Emma and Neuer arrived at the quest location, they were ambushed by a pair of goblins, and thanks to the discerning eye ability, Neuer found out that they were on the same level as Emma. He took out one of the goblins by slashing it apart after launching a stone bullet in its marbles. But before Emma could take out hers, a giant rabbit showed up and destroyed it. Neuer told Emma to stand back because his discerning eye revealed that the rabbit was way above her league, but she insisted on facing it herself because she wanted to prove herself a better partner for Neuer than Lola. Lola dodged several attacks by the overgrown Bugs Bunny and cornered it using a spam of wind spells until it suddenly pounced at her in a violent manner. The impact of the bunny's landing made Emma lose her footing, and the bunny tried to finish her off. But luckily, Neuer was right there to save her using a stone bullet attack. Neuer and Emma ran into the nearby forest to regroup, and Neuer noticed that Emma was feeling depressed over the fact that she was more worthless in battle than Sakura, so he offered to help her get stronger. However, he asked to nibble her ear in return for his services, and when she agreed, he performed the act with such intensity that her loud girl noises attracted the big rabbit to their location. After a bit more ear biting, Neuer reached the number of life points he needed to upgrade Emma. But before he could do so, the rabbit attacked them. The rabbit attempted to finish Neuer off with a stab attack, but he blocked it using an earth-bending move, which gave him enough time to upgrade Emma's abilities. Using her upgraded abilities, Emma used a bunch of combo moves to destroy the big rabbit, and afterwards, they handed the horn of the rabbit to Lola as proof of their completed quest. Neuer told Lola that it was Emma who finished off the monster, and the two ladies made up as Lola congratulated her for completing the quest. Afterwards, Neuer brought the body of the rabbit to the guild hall, and they held a huge barbecue party where all the adventurers around stuffed their faces in the premium rabbit meat. During the party, Lola handed Neuer his prize money, and all the adventurers congratulated him on getting into the Hero Academy, causing him to get emotional as he thanked them for their support. Several days later, Emma and Neuer arrived at the Hero Academy after paying their enrollment fees, and they were having a conversation about how hyped they were to start their new school life when a high-ranking noble named Maria passed by them. Being a curious idiot, Neuer decided to use his discerning eye to peek at her stats, and he was stunned when he found out that she was carrying a curse which would have her die on her 16th birthday. The next morning, Neuer woke up to the shocking sight of Alice resting on top of him. She swore to join him at the academy soon and hugged him tightly until their dad walked into the room to inform him that he was running late. On his way to school, Neuer met Emma and expressed how happy he was about the fact that they were in the same class before taking her to a secluded forest where they locked lips once again.
It's pretty difficult to put into words how depressed I am.
When they arrived at school, Neuer was instantly worried that he'd get treated like garbage because of the school badges which revealed their ranks, and his fears became reality when he walked into class as all of his noble classmates started trash talking him on his way to his seat. One of them even had the audacity to shove him out of the way while flirting with Emma, and every other guy in class started simping for Emma as well. Neuer's social life went even deeper into the mud when Lenore whispered to him that he shouldn't speak to her casually because of the fact that everyone thought she was the one who slayed the dead Reaper. Just then, Maria walked into class alongside her aide named Emmaine, and when she greeted him in a kind way, the jaws of everyone in class collectively dropped to the floor. When she acted polite towards Emma as well, Neuer wondered why she had a deadly curse affixed to her despite the fact that she was the kindest noble around. Some hours later, the students were gathered outside for a class led by a teacher named Elna, who revealed that she used to be a mercenary before promising to whip them into shape in an intimidating way. She informed them that they were doing self-defense training for that day and told Neuer to charge at her with his sword. Neuer was worried about hurting her, so she quelled his concerns by saying he wouldn't be able to land a scratch on her, leading him to believe that she was insanely powerful. Using his discerning eye, he found out that she was a level 232, and he instantly knew he didn't stand a chance because he was still a level 35. However, he charged at her with his full strength, but she avoided his slash with a super fast move which she called the back step, and she claimed that this was the move they'd learn in that class. Elna told Neuer to try avoiding her move using the back step, and he felt confident that he could do it because of all the solo leveling he'd been doing. But he ended up eating a vicious sword strike by Elna. After healing him, she motivated him to try again by promising to do something sus for him if he manages to pull off the move, and this suddenly ignited the passion of every guy in class. Neuer considered using his creative skill to make a martial arts skill, but saw that it required a lot more life points than he had in store, so he went with the cheaper alternative, which was to improve his back step skill. Just then, Elna charged at Neuer again, but this time, he successfully managed to evade her attack using the back step, and afterwards, he immediately reminded her of her promise.
Let's do this.
Elna rewarded him by rubbing her dump truck on his body until he nearly passed out from suffocation. And when he complained that her load was too heavy, she stuffed his face with it before announcing that the lesson was over. For the next lesson, Elna asked the class to divide themselves into pairs, and when Emma suggested pairing up with Neuer, she refused and claimed it would be an unfair advantage to have lovers pairing up. They told her they were only childhood friends, but she still refused to let them pair, and she also told Maria and Emmaine that they were forbidden from pairing up as well due to the fact that Emmaine was Maria's attendant. Hearing this, one of the noble dimwits in their class tried to get Maria to pair with him, but she immediately turned him down and spoke about how she valued baronets like Neuer because of how nobly they served the kingdom despite being treated like commoners. She humbly asked Neuer to be her partner, and he agreed in a wistful way, causing them to have a romantic moment that made everyone in class drown in jealousy. When everyone paired up, Elna informed them that they'd be practicing passive defense and instructed them to throw their partners around a few times and then switch places. Neuer asked Maria to be the first to do the throwing because he was confident in the new passive defense skill he made. But when she threw him, she immediately collapsed with her milk factories landing on his face. Emmaine rushed in to check on Maria, and when Maria informed them that she was out of breath, Elna suggested she rest in the infirmary until later. Neuer knew her sudden weakness was caused by the curse, so he used his discerning eye to gain some more information about the curse. He found out that the 16th year death curse causes one's entire body to be racked with intense pain at regular intervals and eventually brings death to its victim at the age of 16. He considered removing it using his editor skill, but realized that he didn't have nearly enough life points to pull it off, so he decided to gain some information using his Great Sage skill instead. He asked the sage what the most effective way of getting life points was, and the reply was that he should play with the fun bags of all the girls in class. Unfortunately, that information was more trouble than it was worth, because Neuer got a serious headache which left him no choice but to kiss Emma in front of everyone in class. Seeing this, Elna punished him by forcing him to run 100 laps across the field. After school, Neuer and Emma went to the guild hall and informed Lola about Maria's curse, specifically the fact that they needed to break the curse within the next week in order to save her. Lola suggested they find her best friend, who was a cleric named Luna that had the ability to exorcise evil. She informed them that Luna rarely took on jobs to remove curse-based skills for unknown reasons. But this didn't discourage Neuer at all, because he was determined to repay Maria for the kindness she showed him in class. He stood up from the chair he was sitting and boldly asked Lola to introduce him to Luna. Sometime later, Lola arrived at a temple where people of all ages were lining up to be healed by Luna, and during Luna's break period, Lola went into her room to check on her bestie. Meanwhile, Neuer knew he had some time until it was time for him to be introduced to Luna, so he went to get some advice from Olivia. When he told Olivia about Maria's curse, she speculated that it had something to do with her family and revealed that there were skills that could be used to curse one's descendants. She also informed him that he'd need over 10,000 life points to create a skill that could undo such a curse, and added that Luna was better suited to handle the situation because she was an elf who naturally had the ability to exorcise spirits. When he asked how to get the 10,000 points he needed, she messed with him a bit by narrating her favorite scene in Overflow before revealing that there was a skill that was super useful in gaining life points. The name of the skill was Lucky Lecher, and according to Olivia, it only took 300 life points but was capable of giving him some wildly indescribable experiences. Hearing this, Neuer didn't hesitate to create the Lucky Lecher skill. After his talk with his master, Neuer went to a street where Emma was waiting for him, and when he approached her, he accidentally stumbled on a cat which caused him to fall with his face planted right in her fluffy melons. Just then, the wind suddenly started blowing like crazy and lifted the skirts of every girl in the area, causing Neuer to realize that all the weird stuff going on was the effect of the Lucky Lecher ability. Being a filthy gooner, Neuer was grateful to have this ability, but he knew it would mess up his life eventually, so he used his editor's skill to change the Lucky Lecher skill so that the sus accidents would only happen rarely and never during serious situations. When Lola and Luna arrived, Luna introduced herself to Neuer and Emma before inviting them to a restaurant she made reservations in. And as she walked away, Emma couldn't help but feel inferior because of how perfect her body looked. At the restaurant, Luna revealed that she'd looked into Maria's curse before but declined the task of lifting it because the 16-year death curse was the one curse she couldn't lift. She asked how Maria was doing, and Neuer replied that she was suffering from frequent convulsions that pained her entire body. This response made Luna a bit depressed, so Lola comforted her by reminding her that she saves thousands of lives every day. However, Neuer felt that Luna was secretly involved in Maria's curse somehow, so he used his discerning eye on her and found out that her curse skill reduces her lifespan every time that it's used. Afterwards, they walked through the town and Neuer couldn't wrap his head around the fact that Maria's curse was so powerful that Luna's lifespan couldn't cover it despite being an elf that could live for hundreds of years. Luna suddenly asked Neuer to take her to Maria's house so that she could lift the curse, but instead of doing that, he asked to speak with her in a private location. They went to an alley where he confessed that he peeped at her stats using his skill and pointed out that lifting Maria's curse could unalive her. Luna replied that she wanted to save Maria and narrated how her mother continued lifting curses to save people despite knowing the risks until eventually she passed. She stated that she was very proud of her mother and claimed that she wanted to fulfill her role as her mother's daughter by using her power for others. Just then, a wall collapsed in town, and when they rushed in to check what happened, they saw that a boy had been injured by the fallen debris. Luna asked Neuer why people were born into the world, and Neuer replied that he had no idea, so she told him that he'd eventually find his answer. When he pointed out that she already had her answer, Luna boldly claimed that his purpose was to heal people as she pulled out 2 flashy magic guns. She fired dual blasts of magic at the boy, which healed him and collapsed on the ground almost immediately. When Neuer picked her up, she weirdly started whining like Zenitsu about how she was too scared to die. So he used his discerning eye on her again and found out that the cowardly state was the side effect of using her ability. When Luna regained herself, she suggested heading on to Maria's house to heal her, but Neuer pointed out that her legs were still trembling in fear and said they'd find another way to solve Maria's situation. Luna confessed to Lola that lifting Maria's curse could lead to her death, and this angered Lola so much that she pushed her to the wall and started yelling at her. Lola acted like she was going to smack her on the face for hiding the deadly effects of her abilities from her, but ended up hugging her instead and tearfully telling her to rely on her more. Some minutes later, Neuer lifted everyone's spirits by telling them that he knew a way to lift Maria's curse without having to sacrifice Luna. He was planning to use his editor skill to change the condition in Luna's ability that sacrifices her lifespan in a way that sacrifices her finances instead, but he didn't have enough life points to get it done. He explained the concept of life points to the girls and asked them for ideas of how to increase his life points as well as Luna's account balance. Lola suggested they go for a weekly event called a Harem Pride event, which was organized by a certain noble. When they went for the event, they saw an overweight noble ranting in an arena about how harems were trash, and Lola informed them that the noble, as well as the people in the audience, were just frustrated fools who had been betrayed by women countless times in the past. At the same time, Amain went into Maria's room to check on her, and Maria started convulsing in a painful manner. While Amain checked on her, a dark shadow appeared on the ground and showcased a clock which signified that Maria was running out of time. Back at the arena, Lola explained that the Harem Pride event was basically just guys getting insulted while their harem gets raided by the audience, and Neuer initially felt confident that his baddies would pull through. But when he saw how intense the audience were with their hate, he started to have second thoughts. When the first harem was introduced, an NPC came out with the three girls, and the crowd acted pretty normal until one of the girls named Mira blew a kiss into the audience. A sudden silence enveloped the arena, followed by a wave of hate from the crowd that was so loud and intense that it made the harem girls start crying. To add salt to the wound, the fat noble organizing the event completely obliterated them on the scoreboard by giving their harem a total of 61 out of 3,000 points.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Seeing how harsh the event was, Emma said she wanted to go home. But Lola rage-baited her into changing her mind by claiming Neuer didn't need an ugly dummy like her. After the first harem were chased out of the arena unceremoniously by the crowd, the next set of harems also faced insults that were way more diabolical, until the 9th harem on the list came out. Lola identified the girls from harem number 9 as members of an adventurer team from their rival guild named Lamu, and Neuer noticed that their girls were absolute hotties. The harem was so hot that the crowd couldn't say a word throughout their show, and the event host gave them a total of 2,700 points out of 3,000, which shocked Neuer. However, Neuer was also scared for his girls because he knew the crowd was looking to tear apart every harem that came after the perfect number 9, but he decided to stay confident anyways. Just then, Neuer and the girls were announced as the final harem, and Emma initially felt shy to go out until Neuer gave her a bit of extra motivation by promising to have her back. Emma gleefully leaped out and introduced herself to the crowd with her milk cannons jiggling as hard as they could. The crowd went crazy as they all started to praise her marvelous melons, and Luna followed that up with a hardcore intro of her own where she made cool poses with her guns, causing the crowd to lose their minds even more. Lola made a super sweet introduction of her own that instantly charmed the audience, and the fat event host scored them over 290 points, which was the highest score in the event's history. Hearing that, Neuer was about to run a victory lap, but Lola ruined the party by revealing that the event was only getting started. The fat organizer said they could only win the game if they managed to satisfy everyone in the venue, and introduced a game where the harem members had to show their love for their master. The game had 3 scenarios. The first was asking the girls what they would do when their master was shivering on a cold night. The second asked what they'd do when their master caught a cold, and the third asked them to prove that they're the best harem ever. During the first scenario, Neuer played the part of a shivering master, and the girls comforted him by rubbing their milk bags all over his body to heat him up, which made the crowd go bonkers. In the next scenario, Neuer, who was playing an ill master, rested his head on Lola's lap while Luna fed him some bread and Emma gave him a comforting massage. This literally brought the crowd to tears, and the event host was about to lose his mind as well, but he eventually decided to switch to the next scenario. Neuer didn't fully understand what the host meant by proving they're the best harem ever, but the girls understood the assignment because they all immediately kissed him on the lips at the same time, making everyone in the arena drown in jealousy. The host declared them the winner and handed them a huge bag of gold coins before chasing them out of the arena. When Neuer and the girls arrived at Maria's mansion, they saw Emine crying outside, and Neuer confessed to her that he peeped into Maria's skills before revealing that they came to try and undo Maria's curse. At the same time, Maria was struggling in bed and dreaming about how tragic her life had been since birth. The one who cast the curse on their family was a sorcerer who was defeated by her ancestor, and the curse didn't affect anyone in her bloodline other than her. She wondered why God was so cruel to her, and why she couldn't escape the curse no matter how badly she tried. But eventually she decided to live the final days of her life proudly as the Duke's daughter until she met Neuer. When Neuer and the girls went inside Maria's room, Luna explained to Maria's parents that the reason she initially declined their offer was because it would have ended her, and Neuer revealed to them that he'd modified her ability so that she wouldn't have to lose her life anymore. Emine told Neuer that Maria knew about him defeating the Dead Reaper during the exams because of her rare ability to read emotions, and that she'd been interested in him ever since then. Maria suddenly woke up, so Neuer told her that he was going to save her because she was the only one in class who acknowledged him, and his hero speech was interrupted when his head started banging up. When Maria asked what was wrong with him, he explained that he used up most of his life points while looking for the solution for her curse. He explained that life points was basically his life force that could be recharged by experiencing pleasant things, so she kissed him right in the mouth in order to make him feel better. When Luna activated her curse lifting ability, the curse caused Maria a bit of pain as it resisted until Luna eventually destroyed it completely. Afterwards, Maria said the pain in her chest was gone, and Neuer confirmed with his skill that the 16th year death curse was gone, causing Maria's family to spill some tears of joy. Maria thanked Luna for her help in lifting the curse and tearfully thanked Neuer for his heroism before swearing to spend the rest of her life repaying that debt. As Neuer walked out of Maria's mansion, he felt happy about the fact that he could use his powers to save someone's life, and then the girls started chewing him out for rizzing up both Maria and Luna during this adventure. The next day, Neuer told Olivia about everything that happened with Maria and thanked her for the skills she gave him. But she was more concerned by the fact that he had the smell of multiple women on him. He told her about the triple kiss the girls gave him, so she asked him to give her a smooch of her own.
Finally!
However, the virgin chickened out and kissed her on the forehead instead of the lips, so she swore that she'd one day make him give her a kiss that would satisfy her. A few days later, Neuer and the girls stared in awe at the 2 large boxes of gold coins which Maria's family paid them, and Luna said she'd use the 100 million she was rewarded to fix up her clinic. Neuer had no idea what to do with his own 100 million, so Emma suggested he opens a shop where he'd sell monster materials like they previously planned. Emma offered to help him out with that idea, but Lola argued that she'd be a much better fit to help him because of her accounting skills, and Luna made things worse by presenting herself as a candidate to be Neuer's assistant as well. Neuer couldn't handle all of their drama, so he ran home with the cash. Neuer dad's mint-sized brain had a meltdown when he saw the 100 million, and he started trying to gaslight Neuer into giving him the cash so that he could gamble it away on rooster fighting. However, his wife calmed him down by reminding him what a failure he was, and Neuer revealed to the entire household that he was planning to open an item shop that sells rare materials. They all thought it was a great idea, so Neuer told his dad to find a good location and handle the paperwork that they'd need to send the government, and Alice said she'd watch him to ensure he doesn't gamble the money away. Some hours later, Neuer decided to gather some materials by conquering more of the dungeon, and when he got to Olivia's chamber, she suggested he created a skill called the Dungeon Elevator skill that would allow him to conquer the dungeon more effectively. Using this ability, he could instantly travel to a floor that he'd been to previously, although he wouldn't be able to use it for the next hour after its first use. Neuer followed her instructions and made the skills, so she guided him even more by recommending he creates a blinding light skill that basically acts as a flash grenade in battle. He created that skill as well, and when he gave it a try, it blinded him instantly, causing Olivia to laugh at him. Neuer spent the next couple of hours exploring the dungeon, and he couldn't find any noteworthy monsters on the 3rd or 4th floors, but when he got to the 5th floor, he sensed a presence which led him to a room where the carcass of some dead monsters were laying around. Just then, a pitch-black lion monster appeared behind him, and he tried to check out its stats using the discerning eye, But unfortunately, the lion's stats all read question marks, which made him super scared. He blinded the lion using his blinding light skill and created a portal which he planned to use in escaping. But the lion suddenly asked him to wait because it wanted to speak with him.
What?
The lion said he had no reason to fear him, but Neuer couldn't help but shoved when the beast walked closer to him until he noticed a tulip flower sticking out of its head. The lion acknowledged that he was a powerful fighter and offered to take him to the 6th floor in exchange for his help in finding someone. When Neuer accepted, they rode through the dungeon, and the beast took down several smaller monsters that attacked them, causing Neuer to complement his strength. The lion beast revealed that his name was Tigerson, which made Neuer confused as to how he fit the description of a tiger, and Tigerson went even further to reveal that his friend was the one who gave him that name. Neuer asked who they needed to find on the 6th floor, and Tigerson replied that it was his dear friend. He narrated how he and his friend Vachel went once explored the dungeon together until they got to the 5th floor, where his friend decided to explore the 6th floor on his own. Back then, Vachel told him that he'd use his skills to take care of the numerous traps that lay ahead during their raid and promised to come back, but never did. Tigerson revealed that this event took place 350 years ago, causing Neuer to fear that his friend might already be dry bones by now. But he also revealed that Vachel was an elf, meaning he could live up to 500 years. Neuer asked why he didn't just go up to the 6th floor to look for him, and Tigerson replied that he promised Vachel that he'd wait in the 5th floor, stating that he believed promises between friends are absolute. After their chit-chat, Neuer left Tigerson and went into the 6th floor. He noticed that it was too dark to see, so he created a skill which boosted his vision, allowing him to see the green zombie-like monster that was lurking in the corner. When the monster charged at him, Neuer used his discerning eye and saw that it was an undead monster called a sextuple zombie. Suddenly, some more zombies showed up, and when their body parts split up and started chasing him, Neuer ran to a nearby room and locked the door behind him. He went outside using a different door and encountered a different zombie, but this time he had the nerve to face it head-on since they were alone. He noticed something was off about the zombie compared to the rest he'd encountered so far, so he used his discerning eye ability, which made him realize that the zombie was actually Vachel. He tried using Talk no Jutsu on zombie Vachel, but that didn't work, so he created a skill which allowed him to transform Vachel back into a human. Afterwards, he introduced himself to Vachel and told him about how Tigerson had been waiting for him for over 300 years. This brought Vachel to tears because he couldn't believe what a good friend Tigerson was, and he narrated how Tigerson once saved him during a quest, which was when he asked him to be his friend. Tigerson had never had a friend before, but he accepted Vachel because he was the first person to reach out a hand to him rather than try to unalive him. After that, Vachel came to the dungeon to search for a treasure that he could send to his love back home, which was when he and Tigerson went to the 5th floor and got separated when he left for the 6th. After their conversation, Neuer took Vachel back to the 5th floor where he had a heartwarming reunion with Tigerson. He told Tigerson that they needed to give up on exploring the dungeon because he needed to go meet his wife, who was probably still waiting for him. However, he brought up the fact that other races weren't allowed in his hometown, implying that they needed to part ways, and he burst into tears as he expressed how sad he was over the fact that he wasted over 300 years of Tigerson's time. Tigerson comforted him by saying that it was right for him to reunite with his lover, and also stating that he cherished the days he spent waiting for him on the 5th floor. Several minutes later, Neuer used Dungeon Elevator to return to leave the dungeon and have the two friends enough time to catch up before reuniting with them at the entrance of the dungeon. Vachel thanked Neuer for helping them and promised Tigerson that he'd come see him again when things calmed down before leaving. Neuer asked Tigerson what he'd do now that his best bud was gone, and he replied that he'd return to the 5th floor to get something that he forgot. When Tigerson went back to the 5th floor, Neuer followed him, and when he got to the 5th floor, he saw Tigerson crying intensely. Neuer comforted him by saying he was strong for willingly parting ways with Vachel and then asked to be friends with him. He also offered to let him stay at his house, and Tigerson agreed. As the two of them rode away from the dungeon together, Tigerson felt grateful over the fact that he'd finally found another person who reached out to him other than Vachel. When they got home, Neuer introduced Tigerson to his family as their new guard Lion and Alice started playing with the tulip on its forehead, not knowing that it was causing his hormones to go into a frenzy. Some days later, Neuer met up with Emma and complimented her for being bouncy, causing her to hug him tightly in a way that raised his life points up to 1,000. He said he'd gained enough life points, but Emma refused to let go until he pointed out that they were being stared at by the entire block. At school, they linked up with Maria and Emaine, who thanked them once again for their help with the curse thing before Elna stormed into the class and announced that there was an upcoming exam. She stated that the exam wouldn't be easy despite the fact that it was their first exam at the school, and revealed that the exam period starts that day and lasts for the next 2 weeks. She said they were to gather the monster materials listed on the board in however manner they could, and all the NPCs in class started panicking because the items were all from unique monsters. However, Elna said they'd take supplementary classes every day of the summer if they failed to reach 10,000 points, and claimed that being a hero required them to always be diligent. During lunch period, Emma asked Neuer to gather materials with her, and he agreed before asking which of the materials she was aiming to go for. Emma said she wanted to go after the dragon, but pointed out that it was a risky task. However, Neuer suggested they visit Lola in order to get some direction on how to go about their mission. When they got to the guild hall, they saw Lola getting held back by Luna, as she was angrily ranting at another receptionist named Sarah who stole her missions. Sarah rage baited Lola by bringing up the fact that she was much higher than her on the receptionist charts. At the guild, receptionists' marks go up when the adventurers that worked under them performed well, which meant they got better pay and better treatment from everyone. However, it was the adventurers who chose their receptionists, and they could switch at any moment. Lola said it was an unspoken rule that receptionists weren't allowed to take the adventurers of their colleagues, and claimed that Sarah had been seducing adventurers into switching to her side using Onlifen's tactics. Sarah asked her to provide some proof to back up her bizarre accusations, but Lola didn't have any, so she challenged Sarah to a contest where if she won, Sarah would never take any of her adventures again. Sarah accepted her request, but stipulated that if she won, she'd take Neuer as one of her adventurers, and then she started using her gigantic milk makers to tempt him into joining her. After jumping away from her, Neuer used his discerning eye ability on her, but realized that all the skills she possessed were straight out of the Diddy playbook, causing him to have a nosebleed. Sarah went into the next room where she secretly revealed her psychopathic nature, as she claimed that her adventurers had been disciplined to the point where they'd never reveal any incriminating proof against her, even though she was definitely doing illegal things to them. Meanwhile, Neuer promised Lola that he'd help her out, and brought up the fact that he and Emma needed to get some rare materials for their exams at school. He asked to take some hard quests involving dragons, and Luna decided to accompany them on this task as well. So they all got hyped as they declared that they'd take down Sarah no matter what. They completed all of Lola's quests one by one and tried to come up with a plan to take down a dragon as they gathered materials for the exam. Luna suggested they go after an earth dragon in the area, but Emma pointed out that it was dangerous because those dragons hated humans and wouldn't hesitate to unalive them if it saw them. Because of this, Neuer suggested they use a pitfall instead of facing it head-on, and Emma added that they could stab it to death with a spear after it falls in. Following this plan, they used the money they earned from the Duke to buy a spear, and Neuer gathered some life points by hugging every girl he was close to until the day came when they were fully prepared for the mission. Tigerson gave them a ride to the treasure mountain where the dragons lived, and when they got there, Neuer asked his great sage where the closest dragon was. After getting the directions he needed, Neuer suffered a headache, causing Emma to kiss him, and they had to explain to a stunned Luna that it was all because of his skill's side effect. They spent the next couple of hours preparing the pit trap for the dragon, and when they were done, Neuer went to a cave where the dragon was resting. He tried to nullify some of its skills, but realized that he didn't have nearly enough life points, so he decided to go through with the regular plan. He woke the dragon up by throwing a rock at it, and it charged at him with burning rage in its eyes. Neuer ran away and avoided its attempts at stomping him until it started to fire large pillars of rocks from its mouth. He managed to dodge all the earth attacks, and the dragon eventually fell into the pit trap, allowing Luna to stab it in the eye with a spear. Emma followed up by stabbing it in the body with her own spear, and Neuer stabbed it in the head with his own spear, but unfortunately got pushed down by its rain of earth attacks. Luna finished it off with a brutal stab to the throat and healed Neuer's injuries using a healing shot. The next day, Neuer and Emma turned in the materials required for their school exam and gave the rest of the materials to Lola just in time for the announcements of the receptionist's battle. The guild master assessed the dragon remains and gave Lola a huge lead on the receptionist charts, which made her celebrate. However, Sarah asked him to add up her points, and when he did, Sarah's mark shot up and above Lola's. Just then, some of Sarah's adventurers showed up looking like bloody zombies, and they asked Sarah to reward them for their hard work. But she only gaslighted them into working harder for her by making her fun bags jiggle in front of them. Seeing this, Lola took Neuer to a private room and gave him something called a Touch Me Anywhere coupon before pushing him to a couch and doing some intense yoga dances on him. After a bit of sus action, she told him about how she did her best to support adventurers so they could work harder, causing him to comfort her by saying she could vent to him anytime she needed. She expressed her gratitude for his kind words by kissing him before revealing that his cousin's time was up. Some hours later, Neuer went to the dungeon and told Olivia that he needed some rare materials to help Lola turn the tables on Sarah, causing her to suggest he raids the 7th floor of the dungeon, which was a bonus stage that would definitely get him some rare items. When he asked for skills that he might need, she suggested he created magic skills that had the attributes of fire, water, and lightning. The fire skill she recommended was Blue Flame, which was great for frying zombies due to its holy attribute. The water skill was Water Drop, a skill that could not only be used for water attacks, but also as drinking water during long raids. The third skill was Lightning Strike, which was a lightning move he could use to protect himself and make stronger by using the editor skill. After he made those skills, she recommended a final skill, which she called the most important one. The skill was named Magic Fusion, and it grants him the ability to combine magic skills that he previously gained to make an ultimate spell that only he could use. When he was done with the prep, Neuer went deep into the dungeon and took out a group of zombies using a combination of the Stone Bullet spell and Blue Flame. He was surprised by how powerful the attack was, and he was excited because he knew he'd get even more powerful in the future. When he arrived at the 7th floor, he was stunned to see that it was a sunny forest, and as he tried to figure out his way around, a green-haired girl watched from a tree and smiled.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
He got to a part of the forest where he saw some wolves feasting on a dead animal, and when he used his discerning eye on them, he realized that their level was way higher than his current level, so he decided to walk away. As he walked away, the green-haired girl approached him and asked for a favor. When he looked at her, he was stunned because she looked exactly like a lowly version of Emma. When he used his discerning eye on her, it revealed that she was a dryad, and she begged him to help her out with her favor, claiming that she'd die if he didn't help her. She randomly hopped on the ground as a way of showing him that he was submissive to him, so Neuer decided to hear her out. She revealed that she was a great tree with the forest, and Neuer was initially confused by what that meant until he remembered a class where Elner revealed that dryads were spirits of a tree or forest. The Dryad girl explained that her forest sensitivity skill allowed her to spread her roots throughout the forest, telling her everything that goes on within the forest. She said she observed his powers, and Neuer asked if she could read his memories as well, but she said she couldn't do so. He asked what her request was, so she revealed that a certain monster was taking advantage of the fact that her main body couldn't move by ravishing her by day and draining her mana at night. She stated that she'd tell him where the treasure chests were and also direct him to the 8th floor if he helps her defeat the monster. Neuer knew that gaining those treasures would go a long way in helping Lola out with that receptionist's battle, but he said he needed to know more about the monster before he could agree to her request. The girl introduced herself as Dory and took him to the spot of the forest where her main tree body was. There, they saw the bee-like monster terrorizing her, and she explained that monsters of that nature are usually called bronze bees, but that one was gold because of some upgrade it got. Neuer assessed it using his discerning eye and completely froze up when he saw that the monster was at a level above 250. When Dory asked why he was losing it, he told her that the monster would instantly clap him if he tried to face it because it was 4 times more powerful than him. Just then, Dory collapsed in pain as the gold bee started draining mana from her main body, and Neuer felt frustrated by the fact that he couldn't do anything to save her. He saw that the tree was already falling apart and knew that it would only take one more attack by the bee to end her permanently. To make matters worse, Dory was barely holding onto a smile as her human body struggled to maintain its footing, and seeing this made Neuer feel so miserable that he injured himself on the lip and swore that he'd never leave her alone to suffer. He told Dory that she looked exactly like a past version of Emma, and she started to lick the injury on his lip as a way of helping him with his healing. This made his life points shoot up, and he struggled to regain composure until he got an idea which had something to do with Olivia. He told Dory to wait for him before heading back to Olivia's chamber to tell her about the golden bee. Olivia told him to give up on the idea of facing the golden bee because at his current power level, he would most likely die if he went up against it. However, Neuer said he wouldn't give up because doing so would be leaving Dory for dead, and he also pointed out that he wanted to protect the smile of the girl who looked exactly like his milk mommy. Hearing this, Olivia decided to tell him a way to win, but made him swear not to die during his battle against the bee. Some minutes later, he returned to the 7th floor where they found the nest of the golden bee using Dory's forest sensitivity skill. After making sure the bees couldn't see them, Neuer used his creative skill to make a target skill, and for the second stage of his plan, he returned to the part of the forest where wolves were gathered. He told Dory to hide somewhere since it was dangerous, but she suddenly kissed him and told him to come back safely to her. When she left, Neuer threw a rock at one of the wolves, causing the pack to angrily chase after him, and he realized that he had underestimated how fast the wolves were when they caught up to him and overwhelmed him with attacks. When they had him surrounded, he used his blinding light spell to impair their vision for a few seconds, which gave him the opportunity to gain some distance from them again as he rushed towards the golden bee nest. However, he saw the golden bee draining mana from the tree again, and when he saw that Dory was unconscious, he angrily charged at the golden bee with his sword. The bee parried away his attack, so he started spamming lightning strikes at the bee, which it ended up dodging. Just then, the wolves started attacking him, and he barely managed to avoid their claw strikes before remembering that he created a target skill earlier. Using this skill, he made the wolves target the bee instead of him. The wolves started attacking the bee, but it stabbed them down one by one, and afterwards, Neuer used a combination of his water drop skill and lightning strike to destroy the golden bee once and for all. After the battle, Dory took him to the spot where the treasure chests were kept and gave him the 2 strange items which she found inside them. Using the creative skill, Neuer made a version of Discerning Eye that worked on objects, and he used this new ability to identify these treasures. One of them was an item called Wind Selection, which he thought would be great for Emma given her wind attribute, and the second was a golden artifact called a Fruitful Drop, which got him really excited. Afterwards, he thanked Dory, and she led him to the passageway to the 8th floor, where he promised that he'd one day return to the 7th floor to spend more time with her. Neuer ended up giving the Fruitful Drop item to Lola, and when the day came for the results of the receptionist's battle to be announced, everyone gathered at the guild hall, and the guild master revealed that the scores of each receptionist had been converted to chips which were given to their respective adventurers. Each adventurer would reveal 1 chip at a time, and the last one remaining would be declared the victor. When the count began, Neuer and the other adventurers stacked their chips on top of each other, and eventually it came down to a one-on-one face-off between Sarah and Lola. Neuer and Sarah's adventure continued stacking chips until Neuer pulled out the final chip, causing everyone to celebrate as Lola was declared as the winner and queen of receptionists. Sarah started accusing her of cheating, so she pulled an Uno reverse card by pointing out that Sarah had no proof of cheating and reminded her that her loss meant that she was forbidden from stealing anyone's adventures ever again. Sarah started crying over the fact that her winning streak was broken, and Neuer came by to console her, but she tried to bait him into doing sus things with her again by giving him directions to her house, causing Lola to chase her away. The next day, Neuer gave Emma the wind selection treasure he got from the 7th floor of the dungeon, and when she ingested it, her aura overflowed and she gained 2 new wind skills. She tested out the first one named Running Like the Wind, and it turned her into a bootleg version of the Flash as she easily zoomed around the area. Next, she tried the second new skill, which was Wind Slash, and with the single wave of a hand, she created wind pressure comparable to All Might's Texas Smash. After testing the abilities, she thanked Neuer and asked him to accompany her to a party that weekend. He pointed out that it was a party for nobles, but she said she wanted to dance with him, so he agreed to follow her to the event. However, she suddenly got moody and said that Neuer would hate her for being dirty if someone kidnapped her and did questionable things to her. She called him a doofus and ran off, leaving him confused as to what suddenly got into her. When Neuer got home that evening, he saw his family members losing their mind over the fact that they couldn't find an open shop to use as their rare items shop. His father cried while saying that no one would rent or sell them a place because they didn't view them as proper nobles, and Neuer consoled him before asking if he had any clothes he could wear for his party with Emma. The old fart gave him a suit jacket that spilled some alcohol on and left as a rag for years, so Neuer decided to buy a new one for himself. Several days later, Neuer arrived at the party hall fully dripped up in a suit, and he was greeted by Emma's parents, Lord Ladin and Lady Romy. When he asked where Emma was, Romy told him she was getting dressed, and Ladin hinted that there was something special about the dance he was about to have before Emma suddenly arrived. Just then, a certain noble took the stage and announced that he received a proclamation a few days ago from someone named Phantom, who was a thief that many people were talking about in town. Neuer noticed that the mention of this phantom made Emma shiver in fear, and her parents felt very uneasy about it as well. The noble announced that the thief wanted to steal his mermaid's tear, but said it wouldn't happen because adventurers from Lamu were guarding it. Neuer used his discerning eye on one of the Lamu adventurers named Layla and found out that she was an extremely strong martial artist, and the people felt safe when the noble assured them that the mermaid's tear was fully secure. When Neuer asked Emma if she was threatened by the phantom thief, she said she didn't know anything about them and changed the subject by telling him that it was time for the dance. A while later, the two of them were waiting for their turn to dance when a noble named Mike suddenly approached Emma and asked to marry her. Emma turned him down, so he decided to challenge Neuer to see which of them could lead Emma better in the dance. He stated that the price for the competition was a date with Emma and said the noise from the crowd would determine the winner, so Neuer agreed. After Mike's dance, Neuer was shivering because he knew he'd need a Michael Jackson-level performance to top that. But he was determined to win, so he created a dance skill for himself. Even with the skill, he was acting tensed up, so Emma calmed his nerves by telling him to focus on her, and the two of them had a romantic dance that looked like something out of a fairy tale. When they were done, the crowd gave them a resounding applause, and right when they were about to celebrate with a kiss, the lights of the room suddenly went off. The balcony lights turned on, and a masked lady introduced herself as the Phantom Thief and claimed she was there to steal the mermaid's tears as well as Emma. Hearing this, Neuer realized that the reason Emma was so tensed up was because she got a notice from the Phantom Thief as well. Layla tried to attack the Phantom Thief, but she moved out of the way before her punch could land and snatched Emma from Neuer's grasp. She put Emma to sleep using a dark spell and kicked Neuer away when he tried to run to the rescue. When the lights came back on, the Phantom Thief was gone, so the old noble went to check on his mermaid tears, and he was relieved to see that it was safe. However, that relief didn't last for long, because a masked man kicked him to the ground and took the artifact before running away with his partner. Layla and her partner decided to follow them, and Neuer desperately asked to follow them, so Layla agreed on the condition that he doesn't slow them down. A few minutes later, Neuer and Layla caught up to the female Phantom Thief on a rooftop, and, using his discerning eye, Neuer found out that the lady was named Fan and that she had a dangerous summoning ability. Using this ability, Fan summoned a flaming bird and offered them a chance to retreat, but Neuer replied that he'd never give up on Emma, causing her to blast him with a water spell. Neuer dodged her attack, and when the flame bird tried to roast him, Layla zoomed in front of him and punched the attack away with a skill called Demon Fist. Fan charged at Neuer with her dagger, while Layla took to the skies as she engaged in a heated clash with the flame bird. Neuer thought about deleting Fan's flame ability, but realized that he didn't have enough life points, so he started firing lightning attacks at her because his discerning eye already showed him that she was weak to lightning. Because he was stupid enough to announce his game plan, Fan jumped out of the lightning attack's range of 3 meters and pointed out that her bird was about to turn Layla into a pork roast. Seeing this, Neuer used a gravity spell to hold the flame bird in place for Layla and assisted Layla even further by firing a water drop spell at it. Fan jumped in to block the attack, not knowing that it was actually a fusion of water drop and lightning spells. so she ended up getting Pikachu to Kingdom Come. Layla destroyed the flame bird with a brutal punch, and Neuer went to check on Emma, but realized that she wasn't waking up due to magic. He praised Layla's martial arts skills, so she revealed that both her parents were adventurers, and that she joined Lamu when she came abroad to study with her younger brother. He pointed out that they were rivals since he was in Odin and she was in Lamu, but they agreed to become friends anyway. Just then, Layla's partner came by and informed her that he'd taken care of the male phantom thief. When she told him they'd taken care of Fan, he had a strange reaction that made Neuer suspicious of him. Neuer used his discerning eye on the man, but all his stats were question marks, and he suddenly punched Neuer in the gut before using gravity magic to floor both of them. While they were immobilized, the man used gravity magic to grab hold of Emma, and Neuer managed to blast off the man's disguise earrings to reveal that he was Tom, the second phantom thief. Tom claimed that he was going to take Emma as his wife, and when Neuer asked why he wanted to do so, he claimed that he fell in love with her at first sight, causing him to stalk her. Neuer angrily charged at him, and Tom tried to hold him back using gravity magic until Emma intervened by blasting Tom in the air with wind magic, allowing Neuer to knock him out with a hard fist. Afterwards, Layla tied up the thieves and Neuer comforted Emma by giving her a kiss. When they returned to the dance hall, Emma's parents thanked Neuer for saving Emma, and thanks to his efforts, the Earl later helped him get a location for their rare items shop. One day in class, Elna said she had two important announcements to make. The first was the introduction of a transfer student who turned out to be Layla, and when she noticed that Layla knew Neuer, she asked her to sit beside him, causing all the boys in class to get jealous. The second announcement was a special training camp which got the entire class hyped up because instead of going through the usual sword drills, their class would be going on vacation to the hot springs. On the day of the training camp, Elna led the class to the location while warning them of some monsters that might pop up during their fun time. Emma started acting all hyped up about the hot springs vacation, and as she jumped up and down, her bazookas were being ogled by all the meat-headed boys in the area, causing Neuer to politely suggest she stays away from the hot spring. When Emma and the girls noticed the boys in their class plotting something sus, they baited Neuer into agreeing to protect them from all peeping toms in the area during their bath. When they got to a mountain named Amora, the students started complaining about how tired they were, so Elner reminded them that they weren't just there to enjoy hot springs, but also to do some training. She floored an ugly idiot who tried to complain about her statement and told them to figure out the lines and formations which they'd need to fight the dangerous monsters that lived on the mountain. Layla said the boys should be up front since they were good at close quarters combat, and the girls should support them from behind since they were more specialized in magic, and everyone was impressed by how knowledgeable she was about formations. The students assumed that order and moved through the mountains, and they got to a point where one of Neuer's classmates named H. Jorth used his perception skill to save Neuer from stepping into a trap. When Neuer asked who put the pitfall in that area, a fairy girl named Pixie appeared and revealed that it was the work of bandits. The girls immediately started fawning over her like she was the latest Barbie doll, but Neuer knew Pixie's tricked people, so he used his discerning eye on her and figured out that she had the ability to puppeteer monsters. Pixie offered to show them a shortcut to the hot springs, and everyone immediately rushed to follow her, including Neuer, who was determined to protect his friends from whatever vile thing she was cooking up. She led them into a tunnel which she said was a 5-minute walk to the hot spring, and they eventually got to a spot where 3 paths lay ahead. Neuer asked his classmates to stop and said there could be monsters lurking in those paths. Pixie tried to argue that there weren't any, but Neuer accused her of using her monster puppetry skill to control monsters in the area so that they'd ambush them. Pixie decided to show her true colors by ordering some lizard men she summoned to attack them, and Neuer tried to get his class organized for the battle. But the boys all rushed ahead to fight the lizard men head-on. Some lizard men slipped past the boys and faced the girls, but ultimately ended up getting clapped in seconds by Layla and Emma. When all the lizard men were destroyed, Pixie tried to escape, but Neuer stopped her by using a gravity spell to add 10 kilograms to her weight. Later that evening, they arrived at the hot springs resort, and the old lady in charge informed them that the bathing times were designated and split between men and women. The ladies were worried about the fact that the boys would peep at them in the hot springs, so a group of boys led by H. Jorth promised them that they'd do no such thing, even though they were already cooking up a plan to get an eyeful of all of the ladies' plots. H. Jorth revealed the plan to the guys in the class, which involved wearing masks in order not to get outed as peeping toms, but Neuer refused to participate in their silliness. So H. Jorth branded him a traitor and asked the rest of the guys to capture him. They chased Neuer around until they arrived close to the girls' hot spring, and Elna stopped them by creating an earth wall. Neuer leaped over the earth wall and explained to her that he was trying to stop his idiot classmates, so she did a combo move with him that took them down before they could reach the hot spring. However, H. Jorth got back up and challenged them to a fight. When he clashed fists with Elna, his strength ended up being greater than hers, causing her to be pushed back. Neuer held on to her to prevent her from falling, but ended up getting a handful of her melons in the process. Elna asked H. Jorth how he managed to get more powerful. He transformed into a Gunnar version of the Invincible Hulk and confessed that he collected tons of magic potions to make himself more muscular for the purpose of peeping at the girls. He started preaching about how it was every guy's dream to see their female classmates in vulnerable positions, and Neuer argued that peeking wasn't worth it because it would hurt their feelings. H. Jorth angrily charged at him, but Neuer matched him in strength, and the two of them grappled intensely until H. Jorth threatened to do sus things to Emma, causing Neuer to bestow him with a powerless skill that allowed him to easily slam him to the ground. However, H. Jorth claimed that his group still won, and one of the fallen soldiers woke back up and started running towards the girls' hot springs again. Neuer chased after him and tried to stop him by making him heavier using magic, but that had almost no effect on him. To stop him, Neuer had no choice but to dive into the hot spring with him, and afterwards, Elna and the girls thanked Neuer for his efforts in stopping his doofus classmates. However, Neuer collapsed from using too many life points, and when he woke up, Elna decided to reward him by letting him share a bath with them with his eyes blindfolded shut. During the bath, Emma and Elna started rubbing their milk factories all over him, and his life points rose to over 10,000 by the end of the night. Some days later, Emma, Lola, and Luna were helping Neuer stack up things in his rare items shop in preparation for its grand opening, and he told them that the name of the shop was decided to be Stardian Rarities by he and his family. After a fun countdown, they officially opened up the shop, and it didn't take long before people from all parts of town swarmed up the shop to check out all the cool stuff around. Neuer's dad tearfully told Neuer that he was proud of him, causing Neuer to reminisce about everything he'd accomplished within the past few months, and he realized that it was all thanks to his master. Later that day, he went to meet Olivia in the dungeon, and he told her that he was finally ready to show her his determination by freeing her from her chains as a way of thanking her for all of her help. He asked the great sage how he could free Olivia from the death chains without unaliving her, and the old man replied that the answer he was looking for was on the 15th floor of the dungeon. He tried to ask for a more specific answer, but unfortunately the headaches came by in a more serious manner than usual. When he arrived at the 14th floor, he reached a double lane where a sign asked him to follow the first path if he was single, and the second if he was there with someone else. When he followed the first path, he arrived at a thin bridge that was surrounded by spikes, and a sign in front said he wasn't allowed to use any skills while navigating that part of the dungeon. Neuer decided to retreat for the meantime, and he later told Emma about everything Olivia had helped him with, as well as his current goal of freeing Olivia from her bondage. She agreed to help him out in accomplishing this, so he took her to the hidden dungeon, and this time, they followed the second path on floor 14, which led them to an empty room. When they entered the room, the door behind them suddenly got locked, and a large swarm of armed goblins appeared in front of them. The goblins asked them to give them food, so Neuer handed them some cookies he'd been storing up, and when they ate it, they expressed their satisfaction in a weird way. Suddenly, one of the goblins asked Emma to oink like a pig, and when she did so, they started mocking her, so Neuer poisoned them with a second batch of cookies. When they arrived at the 15th floor, Neuer was shocked to see Olivia chained up there as well, but when he tried to communicate with her telepathically like he normally does, she didn't respond. Neuer used his discerning eye and realized that the Olivia he was seeing, there was actually the death chains using a copy of Olivia as a body. They saw a set of commands on the wall which instructed them to free Olivia without unaliving her, so Emma used her wind slash to cut through the chains. The Death Chains tried to be friendly like Olivia, but Neuer didn't fall for her trickery, and he tried to attack her using a large stone bullet, but she kicked it into the air like a football before firing a large flame dragon spell at them. While the flame dragon chased Neuer around, the Death Chains knocked Emma into the corner. When Neuer went to check on her, Death Chains tried to finish them off with another large attack, but Neuer quickly teleported himself and Emma away from that area before the attack could land. They went back to Olivia's chamber and narrated their encounter with her clone on the 15th floor before asking if she had any weaknesses. However, Olivia suggested that they stand down, causing Neuer to give a speech about how much Olivia had done for him since meeting her before swearing to defeat the Death Chains no matter what. When they went back into town, Neuer told Emma that he'd check Olivia's records to see if he could find a weakness. However, when he went to the guild hall to do this research, Lola and Luna didn't even let him speak before performing all kinds of forbidden moves on him, which boosted his life points by a mile. The next day, Neuer went to a library where he read about how Olivia once defeated a cleric named Litterine who had a sacrifice skill that was able to torment Olivia. Neuer knew that his sacrifice skill was the only way to defeat the fake Olivia, so he used his creative skill to develop it. He knew he needed to level up before he could face her again, but unfortunately, he ran into the Death Chains clone by the road and she asked him why he wanted to save Olivia. He replied that he wanted his master to be free from her 200+ years of bondage, and the Death Chains confessed that she put Olivia through intense pain every day to see how she reacted. This made him lock in and activate the sacrifice skill, but when he charged at her, she smashed him in the gut. When he tried to get back up, he felt some sparks on his body, and the Death Chains revealed that the power he was feeling was due to the lightning attribute which she created for her blade. The Death Chains moved close to him and raised her sword in the air in an attempt to land one final blow on Neuer. Several years ago, a boy approached Olivia in a bar and begged her to be his master. She tried to chase him off, but he started groveling, so she informed him that she was a horrible teacher and rejected him even more harshly. He followed her everywhere for the next couple of days like a JoJo stand and repeatedly begged her to be his teacher, causing her to ask why he needed her to teach him so badly. He said he wanted to become the strongest adventurer in the world because of a promise he made to a late friend of his and gave him a chance to prove himself worthy of being her student by landing a strike on her. When he charged at her, she dodged his attack easily and told him to give up on becoming an adventurer. However, the boy refused to give up and continued pestering her every day until a month later when she started giving him some tips on how to take down goblins and some other creatures. One day, she found out that her student was unalived by an iron goblin while rescuing the daughter of a certain noble, and thus made her regret not teaching him properly or bestowing skills on him. She bawled her eyes out at his grave, and for the next 200 years, she rotted alone in the dungeon until the day Neuer came by for the first time. She instantly felt the need to help out Neuer because he looked extremely similar to her late student, and now she hoped that he wouldn't die miserably the same way that he did. Meanwhile, Emma made it just in time to save Neuer from landing her final attack. Lola, Luna, and Layla showed up to defend Neuer as well, and despite his efforts to stop them, they charged at the Death Chains clone at once. The clone dodged and tanked all of their best attacks before flooring Emma using her lightning sword. She attempted to finish Emma off, but Lola stopped her by throwing a barrel at her. She followed up with several more barrel throws, but the clone eventually took her out by throwing a barrel of her own. Neuer used his editor skill to remove the lighting ability from the Death Chain's sword, allowing Layla to destroy the blade with a brutal punch. However, the Olivia clone took Layla out with a flame dragon spell, and Neuer told Luna to heal her, but Luna collapsed instead. He checked out the girls using his discerning eye and realized that the clone was somehow making them weak using magic. When he resumed his fight with the Death Chain's clone, every skill he tried to use backfired, and he realized that she was tampering with his skills using stronger versions of the skills Olivia gave him. However, he claimed that he'd never give up, and he gave up all of his main abilities to use the sacrifice skill again, which allowed him to overwhelm the clone with a flurry of attacks. Unfortunately, his sword couldn't pierce her skin, and she floored him once again with a barrage of punches before sending the flame dragon to finish him. In that moment, he remembered everyone dear to him, and this gave him the determination he needed to jump right into the flaming dragon's mouth. He destroyed the dragon with a slash, and his sword absorbed a bit of its flames, which he then used to destroy the death chains once and for all. After the battle, Neuer was completely drained of life points, so the four ladies powered him up the cultured way. A while later, Neuer met up with Olivia, who was now completely free, and tearfully embraced her while she complimented him for being a strong student. They both expressed their gratitude to each other, and she hugged him tightly in such a manner that his face was planted in her jugs. Several months later, Neuer returned to the dungeon with Olivia, and she told him that he could get as powerful as her if he got to level 100, so he said the chant for the dungeon doors to open up. If you were Neuer, how would you make the girls boost up your life points? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.